League is good, actually, von Gbay99. Ihr werdet den Typ noch kennen. Der Typ ist immer der Typ mit den kranken Dokus. Der hat schon viele extrem coole Videos hochgeladen über ja, verschiedene Spieler, verschiedene Sachen über League of Legends. Ja, und ich bin interessiert, weil das ist wirklich so ein Ding, das machen wir alle als Streamer zu viel oder generell League of Legends Spieler auch zu viel. Ist League schlecht reden, wo es teilweise gar nicht verdient hat. Mal gucken, worauf er hinaus möchte.
Today I'm going to say one of the most controversial things I can as a League of Legends YouTuber. I think League is a pretty good game. If you're somehow unaware of why this statement might be baffling to some, League, for as popular as it's become, is rarely spoken of positively. Anyone who has even a passing familiarity with this game will constantly shout about all of the problems it has while almost never uttering anything even resembling a compliment. And let me say from the onset, this is completely valid. League of Legends is a very frustrating game with very real problems that are worth complaining about. From infuriating teammates who intentionally ruin games, to the toxic community constantly flaming each other, to the game's developer, Riot, and some of the baffling decisions they make. On a personal level, playing League for a decade of my life has legitimately driven me mad more times than once. All of which is to say, this game absolutely deserves much of the criticism it receives, and I in no way mean to suggest these issues aren't valid. But that being said,
echt krass eigentlich, dass man so mit sich rechtfertigen muss, dass League ein gutes Game ist, wenn man drüber nachdenkt. Er hat voll recht. Man muss erstmal sich absichern, das kann sich am Ende beschweren. Was, ich bin runter gerade voll scheiße, mein ganzer Tag ist ruiniert. Weil natürlich sind echte Probleme, aber ja. Ich hoffe, ich mache das oft genug. Ich liebe League of Legends. Mein ganzes Herz gehört diesem Game, mein ganzes Leben gehört diesem Game. Ich hasse bloß Toplane. Aber ich liebe League. Competitive ist geil und das Game ist, auch Toplane ist geil in dem richtigen Umfeld. Ich hasse bloß Toplane im Kontext des Solo-Queue, aber League ist das beste Game auf dem Markt seit 15 Jahren.
I think the persistent negative discourse surrounding League causes players to forget something, because for all of its flaws, League of Legends in the MOBA genre as a whole genuinely did something unique the world of gaming hadn't ever seen before and has not been replicated since. It's a special moment of history that deserves attention, and to showcase what I'm talking about, I'd like to share a story. But before we jump in real quick, let me just say thank you guys very much for everyone who's been watching the recent videos. Returning to YouTube full-time has been nerve-wracking as a new father trying to rebuild his career and provide for his family, but it's also been a rush. I've missed this, and if you would like to see more content from me, I've got a lot more coming out soon, so please.
Er ist Vater geworden? Okay, aber alles klar.
Follow for updates, Patreon, all that. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into today's story. Back in the late 2000s, I was looking for a new video game to play because I was sick of sinking all my time and effort into titles that didn't matter. Up until now, I had primarily been a PC gamer.
Warcraft 3?
Two MMOs, RuneScape and Dofus. Games I sunk thousands of hours into, but
wie sieht das denn aus?
Huge updates that fundamentally changed.
Ist das RuneScape oder ist das Dofus?
Both of these updates were, in my opinion, for the worse, and seeing these sagas unfold made me realize all of the accomplishments I had in these games weren't really.
Das ist RuneScape.
Building up their stats and
so sah RuneScape aus. Wie hässlich.
Increasing arbitrary levels or acquiring digital items. So as I was now in the market for a new PC title, I began looking for something that had a bit more tangible skill attached to its gameplay. Something that involves strategy and execution, where even if the game shut down in the future, I could take the skills I developed with me to another title in the same genre. I was looking for an esport, and since I didn't know much about PC esports, or which one I might like most, I began following all of them, from RTS titles like StarCraft,
geiles Game,
fighting games like Street Fighter,
feines Game,
tactical shooters like Counter-Strike.
Gutes Game.
The thrill of multiplayer competition was something I'd always loved in console gaming when I was younger, and it was really exciting to dive into that world on PC. But it wasn't until I happened to watch the 2010 World Cyber Games that I found the game I was looking for, because it was there, between watching the StarCraft and Counter-Strike Grand Finals, I first saw League of Legends, a new game from a new genre, appearing on stage as a promotional event. This chance encounter came at the perfect time, because at the time, I still had dreams of being an esports pro myself, and I kind of figured it would probably be easier for me to break into some career in a newer game like League compared to some of the more established esports that I had already been following. Additionally, it was really exciting to to see my home region of North America that was apparently good enough to go on and win an international tournament in this esport. So without a second thought, I downloaded League, made my account, and began playing excitedly, hopeful for the future that this game might bring. But then I was hit with the harsh reality that this was going to be no walk in the park. Because League, maybe more so than any other esport I had tried, was better at its best, but more frustrating at its worst, especially for a new player like myself. I knew from watching tournaments League was a 5
So da liegt nie aus. Das ist alle Fake Data. Das Game, der Nash ist auf ganz in der Ecke des Pits, die hatten irgendwie so Poppy oder was ist das? Also ist auch Low Pixel, ist Low Pixel.
5 multiplayer game with the objective of blowing up your enemy's base, but I had no idea what the strategy was.
Was ist das für Grafik?
Went about doing that. My first few moments with League, I was too nervous to queue up for a multiplayer game because I was worried that I would let my teammates down by not knowing what to do, so I just played custom games 1 versus 1 against a bot over and over to try to figure it out, and I remember being so lost. Characters had so much health, and I only had 3 main abilities, none of which felt like they did that much damage. Anytime someone's health started to go down, they could always just run away under their tower and
instantly. Ich hab mich auch so getiltet. Du hast versucht, jemanden zu killen und einfach weggerannt. Und dann warst irgendwie, deine ganze Zeit war einfach wasted. Aber weiter hast du Pressure gehabt und Minion Waste gepusht.
I could kill enemy minions easily to try to push down a tower, but an opponent could do the same, and that kind of just got me asking, is that all this game is? Killing minions over and over until somebody wins? I had no idea, and I got really frustrated at how little I understood, but there was one thing I instantly liked that kept me playing. Because for all of the difficulty that came in learning the MOBA genre, I had never seen another multiplayer game that allowed for so much self-expression. When I picked up League in October of 2010, there were 64 champions in-game. 64. I had never seen that many options in a character select. That was way more than the 3 races in StarCraft or even the 40-something playable characters in Street Fighter. Not only that, but each champion could be taken down any one of the 5 different roles in League, and there were dozens of different runes and masteries you could use to customize your
champion. Aber League lässt schon eine Menge eigene Playstyles zu, wegen all der Champions mit all den Runen und allem drum und dran. Aber jetzt machen sie es immer weniger, jetzt wird das Game ja mehr geradliniger designt, sowas halt wie Death-Timer-Änderungen oder auch jetzt Support und Smite, also Support-Item und Smite können nur dann genommen werden, wenn Champ Select du die Rolle bekommen hast und so ein Shit. Eigentlich kind of interesting. Aber er hat recht, das irgendwie, da hab ich noch nie so drüber nachgedacht. Ich hatte irgendwie, wurde es ja meist auch als negativer Punkt benutzt, dass man eine League anfängt und es ist was Negatives, dass es so viele Champions gibt, dass zu viel zu lernen, du kommst gar nicht klar. Aber eigentlich ist das was Positives, wie er sagt. Du hast so viel zu lernen, du hast so eine tolle Lernkurve und so eine tolle Erfahrung vor dir. Und hast auch wirklich viele Möglichkeiten, dich selbst auszudrücken mit seiner, wie er es ausdrückt, Self-Expression. Eigentlich he has a point.
Further. Throw in the hundreds of items available to build your character in whatever way you want, and you are running into millions, if not billions, of permutations when it came to how you chose to play the game. It was crazy intimidating at first that there was so much to learn, but I quickly realized having all of these options meant I could choose a playstyle that best fit me. I could find a champion that fit my personality. I could build them with whatever runes, masteries, and items I wanted. I could take them down whatever role I most liked and craft experiences with a strategy that was as special and different as I wanted to be. At the time, I was a teenager, like 16 years old, so finding opportunities for self-expression was deeply important to me, seeing as I had never come across another video game that allowed for this kind of creativity in a multiplayer setting. I was hooked. I pushed through the weirdness of learning how to play League and eventually just hopped into a multiplayer game. The first match I ever played, I picked Tarek because I read among his abilities he had a stun, and I figured it takes so long to attack someone down and kill them, having an actual
Oh mein Gott, habt ihr auch manchmal so Charaktere, wenn ihr die spielt, geben sie euch das Gefühl, als wärt ihr wieder so 14, 15, 16, also als ihr angefangen habt, soll ich einfach so die Zeit zurückreisen lassen? Weil allein die alte Arcade zu sehen, gibt mir dieses Gefühl irgendwie. Wie diese rechte Klinge rot leuchtet wegen A, die linke wegen AP.
Done, and I figured it.
Holy moly. Wenn ich heutzutage einen Charakter spiele, der mich so fühlen lässt wie damals, ist es vor allem Kennen. Ich weiß nicht warum, aber wenn ich Kennen spiele, fühlt es sich irgendwie an wie lange her. Wie so ein Early Champion. Wie so, als wäre ich wieder dabei liegt zu lernen. Man redet aber auch davon, Elden Ring nochmal das erste Mal spielen oder Witcher 3 oder sowas oder God of War, aber nochmal ganz neu League lernen, muss eigentlich so geil sein. Ist immer so, oh mein Gott, überfordernd und anstrengend und so, aber wenn ich nochmal so viel Zeit hätte wie damals, würde ich es eigentlich voll geil finden, glaube ich. Vielleicht sogar noch besser als damals, weil es jetzt so viele Möglichkeiten gibt, gut zu lernen. Mit viel mehr Guides, viel mehr Reichweite, viel mehr Streams, viel mehr allem, die man halt gucken kann, um zu lernen, wenn man jetzt so 12 ist und League anfängt. Eigentlich voll geil. Schaut mal gerne in die Kommentare runter, wenn ihr auch so einen Champion habt, bei dem ihr euch wieder fühlt wie früher. Bei mir ist es wirklich bei weitem kennen.
Takes so long to attack someone down and kill them, having an actual
Thrash bei mir, glaube ich. Thrash ist auch so ein Oldschool-Vibe irgendwie.
And everyone else in my games were new players as well. Things weren't as bad as I thought. I got to try out my champion a few times. I succeeded in getting some kills with my ally bot lane, and even ended up winning a few matches. After playing more and more games, I ran into how frustrating League can be when you fall behind early and have to wait out a 20 or 30-minute match just to see your Nexus blow up at the end anyway. That was always infuriating, but the promise of new champions with new strategies waiting to be discovered on the horizon made even those games feel kind of fun. I remember at one point we played a game where we got beat by a Veigar who was on the enemy team, and he had this huge stun that you would have to walk into for the stun to work, but it was AoE, which seemed completely broken compared to Tarek's single.
Weil das dann ja instant war. Das ist ja nicht aufgebaut.
The in-game currency of influence points to buy him as quickly as possible. I managed to do so and played Veigar a couple of times mid lane, but then I kept on running into Anivia, who felt even stronger. She had this really cool Olympic themed skin that was just released, and seeing her constant slows and stuns plus the insane damage that she could deal felt super OP, so I then spent $5 on Riot points to
in die Falle getreten.
I learned that she wasn't actually that OP because her abilities used so much mana, you were always running out, plus her damage didn't scale that hard until late game anyway. So when I saw this other champion,
der Kennen. Oh, Kennen ist so cool.
And stuns and plenty of damage from early game onward, I once again saved up influence points to unlock and play him. And this whole cycle was such an addicting fun mess.
Yeah.
To get lost in. I would go to school in the morning and daydream in classes about what champions I should save up for next, or how I could best use whatever my favorite strategy was at the time. Before long, I was starting to level up my account more while watching streamers play pro matches.
Ja, einfach all die Debatten noch in der Schule über Champions und so, so in der 7., 8., 9. Klasse waren. Oh mein Gott. Mann, war das eine geile Ära. Das nochmal zu empfinden wäre eigentlich, das wäre eine Zeitreise wert. Scheiß mal auf Bitcoin investieren, nochmal League of Legends neu lernen.
And learning more about the competitive scene.
Oh, das wäre geil.
To try my hand at ranked, and it was around then I started paying attention to new champion releases, because apparently 64 champions wasn't enough for Riot, as they were putting new characters into the game every 2 weeks. And I remember quite vividly when Aurelia came out. Aurelia was a champion like many other releases at the time, which is to say that she was bad. Most pro players on their streams confirmed it. She was underpowered with weird abilities that didn't really do that much. Her E only stunned if she had lower health than her opponent, which sucked compared to Tarek's instant ranged stun. Her Q was kind of cool to last hit with, but you could only really use it on an enemy champion once, and her W dealt some damage, as did her ultimate, but nobody thought that her overall DPS was comparable to other bruisers, except for one pro player who was on TSM at the time, Chaox. He started playing Aurelia non-stop to a point where he began one-tricking her. Even though this champion sucked in the eyes of everyone else, Chaox clearly felt like she must have some potential.
Oh, den Frostbutt-Skin.
Was playing her in tournament matches. Curious about her, I eventually bought her myself to try out, where I discovered that Aurelia was a champion who...
Wäre er nicht Wicked Champ? Ja, er ist halt Amerikaner. Das heißt, er hat es einfach geguckt an der NLCS aus Sicht als Europäer, als wärst du vielleicht eher Richtung Wicked oder Zoro gegangen, um einen Nerea-Spieler zu nennen. In seinem Fall ist halt dann Chaox. Fair enough. Aus seiner Sicht hat er den halt wahrgenommen. Aber ich hätte auch eher Wicked oder Zoro gesagt.
Exemplified everything that I liked about League. Aurelia was flexible. She could be taken top lane or jungled, as Freak did in her champion spotlight. There were different runes and masteries you could use with her, playing her more aggressively with damage or more tank focused around armor and health. You could take her with Ignite or Teleport as your summoner spells top lane, and you could try to go for kills early or scale more for mid and late game. There was just so much potential with these abilities that felt greater than the sum of their parts. sports. That was the general feeling I had for League of Legends overall. It was a game that seemed simple on the surface, but the more you played, the more you realized the hidden depth of strategy. Before long, I was playing Aurelia nonstop and developing my own specific strategy. I liked taking Ignite top lane, 2190 masteries with damage runes to try and go for early kills pre-level 6.
Classic.
And there might have been a few thousand or so other top lane Aurelia.
Aber wie jung er einfach aussah. Holy moly. Ist auch wahrscheinlich 15 Jahre her, der Bums. Mann, die alte Irea war so ein cooler Champion, Mann. Bring her back.
Who played her my exact same way at the time, but when you added in the other champions in my champion pool, Yorick, Kennen, Ahri, and so on, it started to feel like nobody played League in the exact same way as me. Nobody had the exact same champion pool with the exact same strategies for each champion. I was a unique player with a unique skill set, at least in my rating, and this might have been the first time I ever felt unique in my life. And here's the thing, I hadn't felt that with any other esport. Tactical shooters provided tons of depth of strategy, but at the end of the day, everyone's pointing and clicking. It's the same skill set. One player might be better with the op, or one player might be better in pistol rounds, but the main skill of who has the better reaction time and precision is pretty consistent across the game. Fighting games provided some opportunity for personalized play, as you're typically mastering one of the 40 characters that you choose to main, but everyone else who plays that character is pulling off the same combos. The physical things that you choose to do are hard-coded into the
War das doch low-key in Liga auch so, oder?
Came the closest to letting me feel self-expression. You do get to choose one of 3 races in StarCraft, and there are plenty of builds you can try out for each race after all, but even that didn't give me the same feeling because StarCraft is 1v1. I realize in hindsight, the fact that League of Legends is a team game is crucial to its success, because the thrill that comes from developing specialized skills and talent only matters when others are relying on you. Like, I love watching baseball games every chance I
get. Es hilft auf jeden Fall, auch von anderen bewundert zu werden, wenn du outplayst. Ein bisschen Aura-Farben zu machen, wenn du als, keine Ahnung, überlevelter Solo-Leveler den Dungeon betrittst und dann einfach eine Ameise umboxst oder so ein Shit. Oder auch wenn du, keine Ahnung, krassen Play machst und dann, oh mein Gott, Faker, what was that? Aber ist auch geil, alleine zu smurfen. Das ist halt, wenn du zum Beispiel Let Me Solo-Hör bist und du smurfst gegen Malenia jedes Mal, auch geil. Aber in dem Fall kriegt er auch eine Menge Bewunderung von außen, fairerweise. Aber I mean, it depends. Da gehe ich dich komplett mit.
And one of my favorite storylines to follow in any match is the battle between the starting pitchers. Because starting pitchers are a specialized role. Nobody on a roster can do what they do, and no 2 starters pitch the exact same way. Everyone has a slightly different pitch arsenal and different techniques in how they go about solving the problem of getting as many outs as they can before their body exhausts itself. But more than all of that, starting pitchers are special because they are the role the team relies on the most. If you're a starter and you have a good outing, that could all but single-handedly win your team the game. Pitch 9 innings of shutout play and you will almost always come out on top. But conversely, a starting pitcher who has a bad outing is devastating. If they surrender a bunch of runs early on,
also ist quasi der Matur muss One-v-9 machen, ja?
The game, but that also forces the manager to bring in relievers much earlier than expected. And since relief pitchers can only pitch an inning or 2, you might have to use the entire bullpen just to close out this match. Pitchers also exert their bodies so much when they play, they can take days to recover, meaning your starter didn't just blow this game, he also exhausted the entire bullpen, handicapping you for the next 2, 3, or 4 games you'll play this week. A starting pitcher who really screws up could give his team a week's worth of losses in theory.
Ist nicht einfach terrible Game Design dann, wenn der Typ einfach so wichtig ist, dass er, also es klingt jetzt also wahrscheinlich übertrieben, aber ein bisschen wie so nach der Sucher in Harry Potter, der einfach viel zu broken ist.
So the amount of pressure starters face each and every time they take the mound is insane. They know they have to perform a role that nobody else in the lineup could replicate. And because the stakes are so high, when they succeed, there's no other thrill like it. League of Legends is the only video game I have ever seen that comes close to replicating that sort of dynamic. When I play a match of League top lane, I feel the exact same kind of excitement and pressure. I'm excited that I have specialized skills, that I play the game in a way nobody else does, and I have a unique role.
Der alte Heaton-Style, so geil die Rolle.
I am also on the edge of my seat because I know my team is relying on me to perform my role well. If I succeed, I feel a rush of joy, but conversely, if I fail, I feel horrible because I know I let my teammates down. My brain normally won't even allow me to accept that reality. It will convince me that my mistakes weren't my fault, that I should blame my teammates or that OP champion because the honest truth is too much for me to bear. That honest truth being that nobody else on the team could do my role as well as I should be able to do it, at least not in my rating, because in League of Legends, you really do have to specialize into your lane to a degree that professional athletes do in sports. That's why it's such a big deal when someone changes roles in League.
True.
Because no player, not even the best pros in the world, can play every role at an equally great level. When someone announces they're learning a new role, that's with the understanding they're giving up their old one, since nobody can master every aspect of this game on their own. League is thrilling in that way. The amount of strategy and specialization and teamwork that all comes together to mimic the drama of team sports, it's something that no other game can offer, and I don't think we acknowledge that enough. Before I end this video, I'd like to ask you a question. How would you describe yourself as a person if you couldn't reference outside sources? So in other words, if you're trying to describe who you are as an individual to some stranger, but you can't say that I'm a fan of video games or I'm a fan of comics because those are external things and not actual core values you have inside you, how would you define yourself? You can pause the video if you need to take some time.
Scheiße, ist mir nicht wichtig genug, der Part, aber der Part über League of Legends ist mir wichtig und er hat eigentlich recht. League ist so ein geiles Teamgame in so spezifische Areale, die dabei bedient werden können und so viele verschiedene Sachen, die du machen kannst, was League echt einfach richtig besonders macht. Das wird einfach zu wenig anerkannt. League ist so ein geiles Game, bester Game auf dem Markt bei weitem. Und das seit vielen Jahren, zumindest wenn man mich fragt. Und ich meine, es hätte jetzt nicht 20 Minuten gebraucht, das anzusprechen, aber er hat dann einfach seine eigene Lebensgeschichte über League erzählt, was auch geil ist. Und wir alle haben vielleicht irgendwie so einen Weg mit League gemacht, der uns auch verändert hat in den Jahren. Und League hat sich ja auch sehr verändert in den Jahren. Und das Game ist eine Konstante, die halt irgendwo geil ist. Klar, hat League Probleme, League ist nicht einwandfrei. Ich meine, gerade für mich ist der Client Turbo Omega Ultra bugged. Kann mich immer noch nicht einloggen. Aber das Game selbst in seiner Reihenform als Teamgame ist das Beste. Es ist so ein geiles Spiel. Und deswegen bin ich auch nach 15 Jahren noch süchtig und gucke immer noch so viele E-Sports-Events und schön noch so für das Game. Hab nächstes Wochenende ein fettes Event geplant und so. Also League ist schon geil. Ist schon sehr, 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 sehr cool. League ist schon sehr, sehr